Hey everybody, you're watching Ready Set Drone, and today I have the Vuzix iWear video headphones. These are designed for watching movies, for using your computer, and now with this little guy right here, they are designed for FPV flying on 5.8 gigahertz transmission signal. So we're going to plug them in, check them out, and see how they do on a couple of different scenarios, so stay tuned. So I've been looking around a little bit. I'm a big fan of Fat Shark goggles. I'm a big fan of the Amway goggles. I'm also a big fan of the DJI goggles. All of those are great goggles for different applications. Obviously the DJI goggles are really designed for flying with DJI copters, and the Fat Sharks and Amways are designed for flying with 5.8 gigahertz copters. This one looked interesting to me because it looks like you can do both. You can do anything with an HDMI out, and the DJI Phantom does have an HDMI out right on the remote control, but it also has this little module so you can fly using a 5.8 gigahertz transmitter in an FPV racer, which is what I'm really interested in. So let's go ahead and open this guy up. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the unboxing, I hope, because there are some other good unboxing videos out there. So a couple of things about this guy as we're opening it. It has twin displays at 1280 by 720. That's two different displays, one for each eye. And it does have HDMI input. It has a 55-degree diagonal field of view with a 16:9 aspect ratio. Now, all of that said, it's supposed to mimic looking at a big screen from a fairly close proximity. Here it is. It's fairly heavy, feels pretty well built. It's got this cable here, which has an audio, it has a USB and an HDMI jack built into it here. It's got a little rubber band around it. Let me take that off real quick. Here we go. All right, so here's the cable. Here's the headset. Can't wait to put this thing on my head and see how it feels. You know what? It's pretty comfortable, actually. The earphones are very comfortable. The headpiece is comfortable. Now, I don't know if I'm looking in the right spot or not. I've watched some other videos that have said the actual spot where you look into it is very specific. You have to have it lined up perfectly in order for it to see what you're looking at. And I haven't done any size adjustment on it either, which looks like you can do that with this little bar up here to make it bigger or smaller. I have a fairly big head. Oh yeah, that's actually better. I just loosened it a little bit. So I guess you can put it on and then tighten it down a bit. So there they are. This is a bag that you can keep it in. Looks fairly nice. It's got drawstrings at the top. It's got a zipper pouch here for probably the charger or something. I'm guessing this is probably the charger. All the power supply. Yeah, it's got a European power supply. Oh, it's got several adapters for different countries. So depending on what country you're in, you can plug it in with different adapters here. Oh, I see. And so I'm in the US, so I'm going to plug in the US adapter. That's pretty handy that it comes with options for different countries, and then turn it. Okay. So now I've got the US plug on it. I'm assuming I need to charge it up before I can do anything with it. So I'm going to go ahead and get it on the charger. And again, cool that it came with two different, looks like maybe Europe and China for different plugs. So a couple of quick things. I read that the view you have when wearing these is supposed to be like a 125-inch diagonal screen at 10 feet away. So it's a pretty big screen. Also, the instructions are just this one page right here. This is not a book. It's just a single page, which I like because it keeps it really simple. You can visit their website for downloading drivers and other instructions. This little book right here, which I thought was going to be more detailed instructions, is just all their safety information, which is not super useful, so I'm setting that aside. I was having a bit of trouble figuring out where you plug this in. you actually plug it in right here on the cable where the HDMI and the USB are. There is a little port where the power plugs in. So now that I've figured that out, I'm going to go ahead and plug this into the wall and charge it up a bit so that we can test it.
Okay, I've got the Vuzix on, and I've got a field in front of me, and I was going to show you a couple things about them. This is the receiver, the 5.8 gigahertz receiver. It's pretty nice, actually. It's got an HDMI output, and it has a power in. It does not have a battery, so I'm having to use this little portable battery charger to power this thing, which is okay. It's just one more little piece of gear. It'd be nice if this thing had its own battery charger, but it comes with 2 antennas, which is nice because you can actually pick up different signal, and you get a pretty clean signal from it. It also has a DVR built in, and so in the side here is a micro SD slot, and you can slot this in and record to the DVR. And it's a pretty decent signal, again, I think because it has the 2 antennas. Now, the question I have really is where to put this thing so that it's kind of sitting upright while I'm flying. So for now, I'm just holding it in the cup holder of my chair in sort of an upright position. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and fly the Rodeo 110, which is the Walkera Rodeo 110, with it. And I'm going to record as I'm flying. So I've got the visor down. I'm going to go ahead and start the recording. There is a channel, band, and menu button and a record button on here. So now I've got the recorder going on the Rodeo 110. It's actually on the micro SD card in the receiver. Looking to make sure there's nobody out in that field. But the picture is really good. It's pretty vibrant. It's as good as 5.8 gigahertz gets. So let me see if I can go ahead and take off and fly a little bit. All right, here we go. Flying towards the sun. It's a little bright out. I'm flying in stabilized mode right now just because I'm getting used to these goggles, and there is a bit of dropout happening, so you might be able to see that on the recording. There's the cars flying back towards. Now the car is kind of blocking the signal on one side, so that might be part of the issue when I go around to that other side. You can hear the Rodeo 110 coming in. The goggles are very comfortable, and again, the signal is decent. It gets a little weaker when I go on the other side of the car, so obviously it's got to have a strong line of sight in order to be able to see it. Just looking out for joggers and walkers coming along this path here. I want to make sure I don't interfere with them. Okay, so what I've got here today is the Vuzix goggles plugged into the back of my DJI Phantom 4 Pro controller, and I'm gonna take it up for a flight, test it out like this, see how it does. I have a feeling it's gonna be about like flying it with the DJI goggles, but I haven't tried it yet, so I'm not for sure. So let me go ahead and put them on. And I'm gonna tell you that what I see here in the goggles is exactly what is on this screen right here, and that is the image. And right now the camera is, I just tilted it up a little bit. Camera's sitting on the ground, or the drone's sitting over a few feet away from me. It's the image plus the heads-up display. So basically I can see all of the data that's on this screen in the goggles, which is good because it gives you some perspective on your battery, on your camera settings. Anything you touch down here, it's going to change up there. I just started rolling the camera, so I'm going to go ahead and take off and fly them a little bit like this. Now, one thing I will say about these goggles versus DJI goggles is that they are less immersive. You can look up like this and see out of them. So I can see my drone over there with my eyes looking down, and then I can see the view up here. So I don't know if that's an advantage or a disadvantage. I guess it depends on your situation, but it is nice to be able to actually do this. And also I can look down with my eyes and see my screen, so I know what I'm touching, and then I can look into the goggles and see a really clear picture of what the screen looks like. So let me go ahead and take off and take it for a little flight. So there I am. Spin it around, get my exposure value where I want it, maybe lighten up a little bit, and let's fly through the goalpost, not hit the goalpost, and across the field, and then we're going to go up. Drop my exposure value a little bit. About 85 feet in the air. And yeah, I mean, the image is crystal clear. It's just the same as looking down at my screen. I wish I had a way of recording this so you could see it, but believe me, it's a very clear image. It's a very sharp image. I can still touch my screen to focus here, tap to focus. And I can see all of the settings, all of the heads-up information in terms of my camera settings, in terms of my distance, battery level, etc. And yeah, let's bring it back. Very clear picture, very easy to fly like this. Hear the drone right above me. Tilt down, you can see me right there. So I can go ahead and get a visual on the drone by doing this. I can see it with my own eyes, which is nice. Bring it over a little closer. And I'm going to go ahead and land. And there it is on the ground. So yeah, great flying experience with the HDMI plugged into the back of the Phantom 4 controller. Very good flying experience.
All right, everybody. So I have had the opportunity to use the Vuzix for a number of things. I've flown FPV with them using my little Rodeo 110 Walkera over 5.8 gigahertz using the little receiver. I have flown my Phantom 4 Pro using the HDMI cable. That was a great experience, actually. I really enjoyed that. I have watched a couple of movies with it, and I have watched a little bit of television. The one thing I haven't done is try to play a game or to do any sort of YouTube or just kind of internet browsing kind of stuff. I thought I'd hook it to my computer, but then I thought, oh, I can do both those things on my Apple TV. So I'm going to plug it into the Apple TV, or it is plugged into the Apple TV, and I'm going to just play a little bit of Crossy Roads or some other simple game like that with it and see what that's like. And then I'm also going to watch a little bit of YouTube with it and just kind of see how it sounds. It sounds really good when it comes to movies and highly produced stuff. YouTube is a little less produced, and so I'm curious to see if it still gives you a good experience. So one thing I've also noticed, it's really important where you put this thing on your head, this part right here. That's the comfort of this thing is so dependent on where this ends up. And I find if it's back on my head a little bit like this, it holds the goggles close to my eyes. Now I've actually got the YouTube called up, and I've got the Drone Racing League called up just for fun. And I'm gonna watch one of their trailers right now. And it's 33 seconds. And I can already tell you the sound is great. I don't know if you can hear that. I'm sure you can. But really, really solid sound. Good bass. Just sounds fantastic. The picture quality is good too. And this is pretty fast action. Drone Racing League obviously is a lot of fast action. That was a trailer for it. And, you know, no lag, no smearing. It has a really nice picture when it comes to watching movies and YouTube. Okay, so to wrap up with the Vuzix iWear video headphones. I like them. They have a good picture. They are great for watching Apple TV. I watched back-to-back episodes of Game of Thrones and had 2+ hours worth of viewing. The batteries were fine. I think they're supposed to go for 3 hours. I didn't test it all the way, but I still had a quarter of a battery, I'd say, after the 2 hours of watching. So battery life is good. The image is great. They've got two 1280 by 720 monitors built in, one for each eye. They can do head tracking. They can do 3D stuff. If you're playing video games or you're watching a movie or you're listening to something where the audio is important, they're great. Where they fall a little flat is in FPV, and I'll tell you why. First of all, this receiver, which I used that came with it, as a 5.8 gigahertz diversity receiver, it's great. It does pretty well, but 5.8 gigahertz FPV without a ground station and without some sort of special HD setup just doesn't look that good. It's kind of snowy and has lots of dropouts, and it's an analog signal. And the reason they do that is because they don't want it to drop out completely. It's okay if it gets a little snowy and glitchy, as long as you get it back quickly, which an analog signal does. So these goggles, which are actually pretty high resolution, kind of enhance that ugliness. I don't notice the glitchiness and the ugliness as much with my Fat Shark goggles as I did with these goggles. That's not to say that you couldn't fly FPV with them, because I did, and you can. And if you're flying FPV with a DJI Phantom or another drone that has an HDMI output, they're amazing. They look fantastic. I've flown with the DJI goggles. They're a little different. I would say they're probably not quite as good as the DJI goggles, because the DJI goggles have controls built into them, especially if you're flying the Mavic and you're connected wirelessly. But for flying the Phantom FPV, they're great. They look fantastic. It's just when you're into racing drones, this little module does an okay job, but you know, they're just not any better than Fat Sharks or Omways or some of the other FPV goggles you can get out there. Now the price is pretty competitive, so I think that's good. The other thing I didn't like about them when flying FPV was the earphones. There's no sound that you get during FPV, and there's really no way to wear these without having the ear cups over your ears. So basically you're a little bit hearing impaired as you're flying, because you don't hear the drone as well, you don't hear the people around you as well. I didn't like that. I prefer flying where I can hear completely and talk to people as I'm flying, so I can make sure I'm being safe. So that was a little bit of a disadvantage. But if you're buying something, then you want to use them to watch movies, to play video games, and to fly FPV, they're going to be great. You know, they can do all three of those things for you. The only disadvantage being the ones I just talked about. If you're just buying something for movies and video games, they're also great. If you're just buying something for FPV though, I wouldn't recommend them as your primary FPV, unless you're going to invest in some sort of HD ground station that'll give you a digital signal versus an analog signal. So bottom line is, they're a good product. They look great, they sound great, especially for movies and games. They're okay for FPV, but not my first choice. If you are going to buy them, I've got a link down in the description so you can check out the full specs. And if you are interested in more videos about drones and RC stuff, please subscribe to Ready Set Drone. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.